Hello and welcome to the Major Project Part 5, the Cumulative Final Exam presentation. So out of all diets, I've chosen the on-the-go diet because I found it the most interesting and most likely to have key missing nutrients from the diet. So most of these foods are processed. You can take a look at the list I've provided of the food list report that the only unprocessed foods that are in this particular meal is maybe the chicken and the ultimate grill from Wendy's and the potatoes that have become processed. I would say about 10% is based on whole foods because anything out of the package or that's not naturally made, such as the canned applesauce or the sports drink and the soda, is completely processed. However, there are some other foods, such as the chips, that have originated from a potato, and the chicken sandwich that originated from a chicken. Well, kind of. But have been revamped with less nutrients and more flavor enhancements. So now moving on to the types of fat. Fat doesn't always have to be a bad thing. There are lots of different types of fat. You have saturated fat, polyunsaturated, saturated, monosaturated, trans fat, but most of this diet comes from polyunsaturated fats, which is surprising considering any type of unfat, so to say, generally comes from oils, vegetables, and is mainly healthy, which this diet contains little to no natural sources. The next type of fat is saturated fat. Saturated fat is solid at room temperature. It holds a lot of moisture and often tends to be the visceral fat that is stored in the abdomen that gives us the muffin top, as people say, or what can lead to abdominal obesity. High amounts of fat, in my opinion, is the most dangerous type of oversaturated nutrients to watch out for because high amounts of fat can lead to clogged arteries, as I mentioned before, abdominal obesity, type 2 diabetes, and before any of that, a major increase in weight. So here we have the protein analysis. The protein analysis was not a big shock to me because it made up less than 1/5 of the entire macro distribution protein, only comprised of 14%. Looking at the chart, only 248 calories and 62.6 grams. Diet number 3 lacks almost 2 times the DRI for a general person. And what is even more concerning is the fact that grilled chicken sandwich compromises 53% of the protein source, indicating that there is a huge lack of protein. So, going back to the food list report, you can also see there is no source of plant protein. Not that there needs to be a high consumption of plant protein, however, when matched with this lack of diet and incorporation of different sources of protein other than a grilled chicken sandwich is probably a better option. There are lots of downfalls to protein deficiency: an increase of fat and decrease in muscle mass. One could experience osmotic imbalance or marasmus even as an adult. So, for describing the vitamins, I think that this diet is overall lacking. However, the amount of vitamin B is outstanding compared to the rest of the vitamin. Um, I will focus mainly on the highs and lows. So you have B3 is the highest, and that most likely comes from milk and the drink from Starbucks, and meat from the grilled chicken sandwich. Looking at the deficiency, this person is consuming absolutely no vitamin D. So broken down, vitamin D is fat soluble, and its purpose is to keep maintenance and most importantly absorb calcium and bone growth. This vitamin provides zero vitamin D, which is concerning because it helps so much with bone density. If someone not yet developed, such as a teen who can drive or a young person who is involved in athletics and doesn't really have time to meal prep or to eat this, they'd most likely experience high muscle weakness and fatigue. Moving on to minerals, both iron and calcium are extremely important to the body as calcium helps with bone and the teeth. It activates enzymes that regulate the body's functions, while iron is essential as it aids to the red protein hemoglobin. It is used to transport oxygen in the blood. However, it's usually found in meat, beans, fruits such as apples, bananas, and calcium is found in milk and cheese generally. Yet another shock: this diet does fail to meet the bare minimum requirements for minerals. A consequence to this lack of mineral diet is weak bone development, anemia, or even insomnia. So, some specific dietary recommendations to improve the overall quality of the diet, I would definitely say to eat more avocados or nuts. Avocados are in one serving, which let's say it's a cup, has 21 grams of fat. However, these fats are healthy fats, unlike the types of fat that are in chips and other junk foods, as well as any type of nut at serving size. So, let's say also a cup, which is actually quite a lot in serving size. It contains about 80% of the same type of healthy fat that avocados and other natural whole foods do. This dietary recommendation is a great idea because it involves very dense and nutritious foods, unlike other foods in this diet, which are just calorie eaters. Avocados and or nuts contain a lot of macros and micros that are essential to the body. Lots of people think that because the food is healthy, it will not taste good. However, pairing foods together is key to taste. So, when you have these foods that can be made on the go, incorporating these small snacks will not be difficult if they're paired with a food that the person already likes. My next dietary recommendation is the addition of pure protein. I have added this chart to help illustrate the benefits of these whole animal protein sources. However, that's just to get the idea of how much protein is actually in 3 ounces of chicken and how little saturated and how little carbs are actually in chicken versus some of these other junk foods. There are many other sources of protein. A great on the go source of protein is through protein shakes. These have a lot of pure whey in them, and they also come in different flavors, so you can mix it with a smoothie or just make whatever kind of flavor that you buy at the store into a protein shake. You can carry these in a water bottle and just hold it, or if you have a backpack, or they can go in your cup holders in the car, like whenever you're driving. But these are great recommendations to add a lot of nutrients to the diet. So, my third recommendation is to drink water in a water bottle. And I stress in a water bottle because not only is it eco-friendly, but most people forget to drink water throughout the day, leading them to end up thirsty. And soda and soft drinks are often marketed more than water, so I think people have an easier time leaning towards soft drinks versus water just out of conveniency. Water bottles are easy to use and a great reminder to drink water, which most people need to do more of. So, even though this recommendation to drink more water is not exactly food, it's still dietary and helps with the metabolism, gets the digestion moving properly, and also hydrates the skin. You take away many of the calories and the unnecessary unhealthy macros when you drink water because it just fills you up. So, for diagnosing this chronic disease, I chose case study number 2. The 28-year-old female patient, originally from Mexico City, she was experiencing extreme fatigue, depression, and mood swings. She was also experiencing swelling around the eyes, coarse and dry hair, dry skin, and her body fat was 46.9. That is considered more than obese. Her waist height relationship was 0.65. Her blood pressure was 92/68. Her basal metabolic rate was way lower than normal. So many of these symptoms that this patient is experiencing is commonly mistaken for diabetes, depression, and if not physically examined, celiac disease. These diseases are often overlooked because of the common denominating factors of depression, fatigue, and constipation. So I'm diagnosing this patient with Hashimoto's hypothyroid disease. Case number 2 has hypothyroidism because of the clear signs of the puffy face, the obesity from the massive weight gain, dry skin, and extreme fatigue due to thyroid hormone production. So, hypothyroidism, also known as Hashimoto's disease, is an autoimmune disease, therefore, it is essentially the immune system attacking itself. We see that autoimmune diseases generally occur later in life versus an early stage as an infant or a child. Since many autoimmune diseases come from the gut, I think a key solution would most likely be in the diet. One possible cause of autoimmune diseases, such as Hashimoto's, is most likely due to evolution. So as our brains and our bodies evolve, so do the cells in our bodies, and along the way, it is possible that through genetics and coding, our cells wind up having a mix up, which eventually results in the autoimmune disease. Similar reactions occur with people who also have diabetes, celiac, or vitiligo. I would highly recommend that this patient consumes a high protein diet based on the diagnosis described above. So I decided to go with the high protein diet. The diet I chose is high protein, filled with mostly unprocessed foods, high in nutrition but low in calorie measurement. Protein naturally is essential for the human diet. Thyroid hormones, known as TH, is extremely effective for the disease because protein generally speeds up metabolism. Known as TEF, the thermal effect of food, caused by the extra calories required to be absorbed and digest the food, often also speeds up the process in the metabolism. You will see all of the measurements of the foods and the quantity in the next slides. So here you have the macronutrient distribution report image. You see that you have 216.6 grams of protein, 185.6 grams of alcohol, and 93.4 grams of fat. Total, that is 35% protein, 34% fat, and 30% of carbs. As for the sources of fat, majority is monounsaturated fat, so you know it comes mainly from the whole and healthy fats. And here you have the bar graph report image. You can see that calories make up 91% of the DRI, calories from fat is 114, protein is 300% of the DRI, so very high in protein, and carbs is half. So we've reduced carbs because we are trying to focus on the high protein, high metabolism diet. You can also see in this image that most, if not all, of the vitamins and minerals are met. This is mainly due to the unprocessed foods because all of these foods are very whole and dense but high nutrient value. Summary personal dietary analysis. So this is my diet, my personal carb intake. Most of my carb intake comes from unprocessed foods, but occasionally I have processed foods such as chips, pretzels, or maybe something my mom buys from the store. I generally eat a lot of Clif Bars, a lot of fruit. Lately I've been getting into Cheerios. I try and have quinoa or rice incorporated with grilled onions and veggies with olive oil for dinner. I would say 25% are simple carbs, including milk, and if I have candy or any other processed foods, the other 75% are whole carbs that are grains or wheat from bread. However, most of the food is evolutionary. You would most likely not see any of what I eat consumed in a paleo or a Neolithic diet. Strengths that come with these types of foods and carbs I eat are the unprocessed carbs that carry a lot of nutrients. Because of the wholesome carbs I consume, I don't really have any negative effects after eating, such as bloating, inflammation, or headaches. The other 25% of the carbs I eat, such as refined bread, kettle chips, or even cereal, can leave me feeling bloated and unsatisfied to the point I start eating more after consuming the bad food. It makes me feel tired and extremely fatigued. The most interesting thing that I learned in this class about carbs is mostly how they're used in multiple ways. I never knew much about carbs initially, so I had a decent amount to learn, and now knowing the purpose and the importance of carbs, I feel a lot more educated, and I can educate my friends and family about the importance of carbs and really just how to balance how many carbs you intake. So here we have the personal lipid intake. I mainly consume lipids and avocados. I am a huge fan. Generally I eat at least one, like every day. I eat a lot of, well, I guess I don't eat. I use a lot of oil when I cook, or as like a secondary nutrient to the protein I eat. I don't really eat a considerable amount of fish just because my parents usually don't buy fish, and if they do, it's from a restaurant, and I don't really eat fish from restaurants. Um, However, my lipids come from cheese and lasagna, milk and I eat in my cereal, or even frozen vegetables. These are pretty healthy considering the majority of lipids in these stores point to monodiglycerides. I stay away from the majority of these types of foods on a daily basis, but not always, just in moderation. Human evolution has grown towards factory made products, but lipids that I intake strays away from the produce and the meat department. Majority of my foods I consume come from non-packaged foods. Lipid strength aid in my active life. They are usually used for energy and not stored as visceral fat. Weaknesses in my intake can be found in the lipids that are calorie dense but not really beneficial, just kind of like calorie consumers. These lipids are a weakness because they don't really act as a replacement to my daily lipid intake, but rather are an addition to my lipid intake already, in addition to what else I've already eaten. They're not really beneficial, so I'm consuming the extra empty calories while on top of the calories I already consume. I learned that the purpose of lipids are similar functioning to carbs, made up of similar elements. They are both essential to the body. My protein intake generally comes from ground turkey, chicken, bacon that I eat at work sometimes, or other vegetables that contain protein as like a secondary nutrition. I sometimes incorporate protein powder because of my lack of protein in my general diet. A decent amount of protein comes from plants such as quinoa and occasionally peanut butter, but majority is animal-based protein. I eat a lot of whole meats with low fat. However, I've been trying to incorporate more protein in my diet. They're mostly non evolutionary, unless the cow's fed with grass or wheat, then it could ultimately change the produce of the meat. The animal based protein is not revolutionized, which is a positive thing. Other plant proteins, such as quinoa, have not been evolutionary because of the basic base of nutrition. Not much to alter with quinoa. The protein powder that I consume with milk is considered evolutionary because of its special extraction and creation of a source of protein. Due to the rawness of these proteins being pure protein and containing a lot less fat, the healthfulness is extremely beneficial. Strengths in my diet are my sources of protein that come from whole products of animals that aren't protein substitutes, and they aren't treated as a secondary source. Animal proteins also benefit greatly to building muscle and completing amino acids. Healthy outcomes are specific to my goal in building a lot of muscle mass. However, a weakness in my diet is the quantity of protein I consume on a daily basis. Based on previous tracking records of my daily intake, I consume about 1/3 of the DRI protein amount, and that can leave me feeling extremely tired and fatigued even after I don't do a lot of exercise. I learned the function of protein is the importance it has on completing amino acids and the vital function protein has on every aspect of the body, such as enzymes, transportation, bone development, and even brain function. So, the role of protein is probably one of the most valuable roles in the body. Lastly, we have the personal vitamin and mineral intake. This slide is just vitamins, so we will start from here. Vitamins in my diet consume mostly from fruit and vegetables and meat as a secondary source. Vitamin A is consumed when I eat vegetables with milk. I eat my cereal again. Vitamin D is consumed a lot in my diet because I eat a lot of rice, quinoa, and hard boiled eggs, just any type of eggs. I will say that I do eat a decent amount of vitamin D because I love avocados and I get all of my veggies in. However, the amount of vitamin E is definitely lacking just because I don't really eat much fish. It's just not really in my house, so that's definitely a vitamin that I lack. Vitamins B through 12 are mostly mixed in with the rest of my diet, getting B3 from meat and nuts, B5 from chicken and lots of avocados, and even B6 when I eat Cheerios. These foods are all healthy and rich in vitamins, and our bodies are slowly adapting to the original and modified food source nowadays, like vegan meat or organic packaged frozen meals, that a lot of vitamins and other micronutrients are taken out because of the process and even GMO fruit and other just modified foods. Even though there is such thing as overeating in vitamins, I think that I eat a healthy amount that increase my immune system and repair cellular damage whenever I'm working out, exercising, training. Deficiencies in my diet are vitamin D, which could lead to a potential problem of muscle weakness or limited range of motion within the body. However, my vitamin intake mostly covers my RDI. I learned that it can contribute to a lot of common diseases such as anemia, osteoporosis, and I did not know the subcategories of vitamins such as vitamin 1, 2, 3 of vitamin B. I consume minerals from milk and sodium rich foods like chips I eat, lettuce, grilled celery, and tomatoes, which I consume generally on a daily basis. Other foods high in magnesium on my high intake list are bananas, any type of greens in my salads, and the sodium I eat in processed foods. These foods are majority healthy and non-processed. Based on evolutionary, they are most likely not considered healthy compared to the types of foods that people ate before the Industrial Revolution and factories. The minerals themselves are healthy, however, the types of food that I consume are not. Sufficiencies in my diet are calcium, potassium, and sodium. My body is able to maintain the everyday task like a good blood pressure, maintaining a good and organized heartbeat, and using the vitamins to help with bone density. Another great side effect that I have from my consumption of minerals is my awesome immune system. I usually don't develop colds or sicknesses, or if I do, it's generally like once a year. I've noticed that iodine is a huge deficiency that I used to have. It used to cause my body to lower its body temperature. Iodine is lacked mainly because of my lack of seafood incorporation. Iodine is high in seafood, so that would make sense. It causes constipation, a bulge in my goiter due to lack of thyroid production, however, generally uncommon. I always paid attention to when labels said vitamins and minerals, but I didn't actually know the side effects that vitamin and mineral deficiencies could have in the body. So, something I learned in Bio 126 is the importance and the function of each individual vitamin that they play in the body. So, for extra credit, I have answered these questions. NCP does not have all of the types of foods and like the brands. An example of when my diet may appear healthy, but it's really not, is when I program grilled chicken, but they don't have like the brand or the correct nutrient information, and so it'll say, oh, it's great in protein, but really really low in carbs, so overall it's good, even though that's not necessarily the type of grilled chicken that I was eating. It might have been saturated or seasoned with butter or just general any type of seasoning or flavoring that just adds extra calories. However, an example of when my diet may appear unhealthy in NCP when it actually is when I'm tracking it for days at a time where I'm not really eating great. Like I might be having like an on-the-go diet, probably not as bad as the one from earlier, but when I'm not really getting the right amount of macros. It also may appear unhealthy when wrong portions or brands, like I mentioned before, are applied to the calculator. I don't think that NCP is very accurate in the variety. I mean, when you have the right foods, it's extremely accurate and helpful. However, it just lacks so many different types of foods. So, for picking a health goal, my objective was to start eating breakfast in the morning and consuming fiber because I find that I do not eat as much as fiber as I would like to, and also incorporate a lot of protein. I mean, twice the amount of protein I would normally eat, so that I just barely meet the DRI recommendation. And my subjective is to stop eating before 8, so I give my body more time to like re-energize and reset its metabolism, and so I'm just not tired in the morning, feeling like my stomach's still not processing food from last night that I ate at like 12. The testable hypothesis: if I consume more protein in my diet and foods that are rich in vitamin E, it will aid in muscle recovery after runs and workouts, and also decrease muscle fatigue and weakness. The subjective measure of wellness: if I stop eating before 8 at night, I will wake up feeling more energized and less bloated. So, the description of intervention is to eat at least 20 grams more of protein and 15 grams of magnesium while also not eating after 8 p.m. I don't think that these are going to be very hard requirements. I have inserted some foods high in vitamin E to the right just because it is extremely easy to incorporate these foods when you take a look and have a list. So, attempting to consume 20 grams more protein and 15 grams more magnesium will hopefully give me enough results from the morning I wake up to the next after my workout of how I feel. I will be able to measure both my mental and physical feeling and recovery. Foods high in vitamin E also contain other micronutrients that are packed. So, hopefully, by eating more vitamin E, I also am able to eat and consume other vitamins and macros. Increasing the amount of unprocessed foods is extremely important because they contain so many raw nutrients. So you're not really eating that processed, modified foods. So these study results, I met the protein. I did not quite meet the vitamin E DRI goal. I ate chicken, steak, and turkey. This might have been just a good day for me that I met. And I decided to start tracking like just on a good day. But I ended up meeting more than enough of my DRI goal. However, I did not meet my vitamin E goal. I'm not really too surprised that I did not meet it, just because I know that it was going to be hard to really counter in on vitamin E. So, for slide 36, the study results continued. I met 80% of the calories, which not really too concerned since um, calories are not really what we were going for. However, I did meet 187% of the protein, which is more than I ever thought that I would because I do not eat a lot of protein. So that's awesome. However, for vitamins, the goal was the DRI was 15 grams, and you see at the bottom of the chart, my total was 11.60. We were just shy, about 3 points of meeting the DRI goal for vitamin E. That was 15 milligrams. The incorporation of protein and vitamin E was majority how I expected. I knew that it was going to be a little bit more difficult to incorporate vitamin E versus protein just because I think protein, there are a lot more sources in my house for protein. Protein is just a way bigger selection of food versus foods that are high in vitamin E. and as easy it would be to go to Kroger and pick up foods. Because of these times, the coronavirus, my parents are very limited on when I go to the grocery store, unless it's an essential. So I was not really surprised. In conclusion, I did not meet my goal for vitamin E. However, I did meet it for protein. My hypothesis was about 2/3 correct because I met the protein and I met the not eating past 8 goal. And so that was great too. I would definitely continue with this intervention if I were completing it for a study or an experiment. I mean, overall, it's been pretty difficult to meet the DRI goals every single day, much less one day, because there's just so much process in these foods that just take over the micronutrients. It's just so easy for me to lose sight of eating so clean when I have so many foods in my house that are just processed in some way. And I don't think that's really a reflection of self control, more or less. There are so many products that are processed in some way. I definitely think that if I took time to write everything down and just make a list, organize everything, that I would have a way better idea of what I'm consuming, and so I can track it a little bit better. So that is the end of this major project part 5. I really liked this class actually. Originally, when I was taking this class, I was kind of nervous and I considered dropping out because it was college class and I wasn't really sure how, but I wasn't really doing much in my current senior classes because I'm a senior, they don't really give us much work, and I thoroughly enjoyed this class and I'm glad that I did not opt not to take it. With Bio 126 being one out of the 7 classes, I did find it manageable. However, my high school load was pretty easy. This class also taught me how to work more time efficiently and how to really, I guess, just apply myself if I want to learn. I can definitely see how a lot of people would not do well in this class considering it is an online class. And I think that online classes are a little bit more challenging. Not necessarily the material, just overall making sure you do the work. It's online, there's no one really there telling you in person, hey, you have to do this. So it really just taught me time management and how to sit down with information and teach myself and make myself apply what I've learned through the presentations and all of the information that you have given us. Another thing that I enjoyed about this class is the street knowledge, not only the scientific knowledge, but I can also use the information that I learned from this class and apply it to daily to day life. So thank you for listening to this presentation, Dr. Sanctuary. I hope you have a good rest of your summer.